And we are standing by to hear from Donald Trump on the trail in Florida tonight after he has declared today that his shackles are now off. We will see if he continues to attack top members of his own party after a ferocious tirade on Twitter today. Let's bring in our political team. They are manning their battle stations for us on this story. Okay, let's talk about these tweets that we saw. You guys have all seen them. Donald Trump taking aim at Paul Ryan. This is one of the tweets. It says, our very weak and ineffective leader, Paul Ryan, had a bad conference call where his members went wild at his disloyalty. There were several who basically told him they didn't like his strategy on this. They were very vocal about that on the call. And then this one, taking aim at John McCain, the very foul-mouthed Senator John McCain begged for my support during his primary. I gave, he won, then dropped me over locker room remarks. Okay, a lot to unpack here. We'll talk about the locker room remarks part in a little while. But you look at this, Jim, and it just seems very self-destructive.
It does. I think we're going to see tonight whether or not Donald Trump is truly unshackled if the teleprompters are up. I like to describe those as his rumble strips because they sort of help him stay on the road, but not entirely. Like they can't keep him completely on the road. But I think in the view of a lot of Republicans, this is kind of a zombie election right now. Donald Trump, in the view of a lot of Republicans, is over. It ended on Friday, but he still roams the countryside. And I think what Donald Trump is doing at this point is he's using the last cards he has left. He used the Clinton accusers at the debate on Sunday, and now he's going after the Republican Party and saying it's me against everybody in Washington and hoping that that sticks.
But a lot of Republicans feel like he's just lighting himself and his whole party on fire.
I mean, what else does he have to lose? Which is really, at this point, not a whole lot. The problem for Republicans is that the party itself, actually, they have a lot to lose, including the House and the Senate. And so that's why there is such a disconnect. I mean, he is basically at the end of his willingness to sort of take all the advice that he's been getting over the last few months. He's going to do what he wants to do toward the end because it's helped him thus far. But for Republicans, it's just blowing the whole thing up.
What are you hearing?
I mean, you know, his strategy clearly is one that he used very successfully in the primary, which is to run against the party establishment. I mean, when you look at exit polls from those early primary states, Republican-based voters just absolutely hate their party leadership. They believe they've been betrayed, according to those exit polls. But the problem is that he's not running in a primary anymore. He's running in a general election. He needs to expand his base. And these fights don't do anything to serve a message. All it does is makes him look petty at a time when he's supposed to be looking presidential.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's making him look petty. It's shrinking his base. It's shrinking the tent for Republicans. But the thing, as Abby was saying, for Donald Trump is, right, at this point, he can read a poll. He sees that in the last Wall Street Journal poll, down 11 to Clinton, a month to go. Two things. One, can he drive out his core supporters by doing the things that they like, the new right, the Breitbart crowd, and also maybe take a few people down with him? He is a score settler, no question.
And draw down Hillary Clinton's supporters to press her turnout, which is one reason why he's attacking her the way he is.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so he said in one of those tweets, the locker room remarks. He used that. He said locker room during his first response to the Access Hollywood tape that came out. I mean, to be clear, the tape is him bragging about how he has or tries to sexually assault women, right? I mean, that's what this is, forcible sexual advance. He seems to be diminishing this, and it also seems that some of his surrogates, for instance, Dr. Ben Carson, who I talked to today, who said, look, this is not what should have been said, but he's also diminishing exactly what was said. Here's the exchange. Where are you hanging out? With whom are you hanging out that you hear people talking like that?
As I was growing up, people were always trying to talk about their sexual conquest and trying to make themselves appear, you know, like Don, you know, Casanova. I'm surprised you haven't heard that. I really am.
I haven't heard it, and I know a lot of people who have not heard it. And I think
maybe
they were shocked.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem.
Is there just a lack of understanding among Donald Trump and those who are close to him? Ben Carson advises him about what his comments meant and how that is very offensive to some people, or are they just trying to skate past it?
I think that they are just struggling to explain all of this. I mean, Chris Christie was his town hall debate guru. all last week, didn't show up at the debate, and finally emerged on talk radio this morning. We didn't even see Chris Christie today. To what Dr. Carson said, I mean, I played high school football. I guess I was hanging out in the wrong locker room. I didn't hear that kind of talk, and I think a lot of other guys didn't hear that kind of talk. I think they're just sort of fumbling for answers at this point.
I think what's kind of disturbing is this attempt broadly across his advisors to normalize this kind of behavior and these kinds of comments, which I think is beyond politics. It's sort of like there's a point at which you sort of cut off we need to do whatever we can to get through this and move on to this is not right. Let's just condemn it, apologize, and move on. The fact that they're not willing to do that, I think, is troubling, and it probably shows a little bit how they're in such dire straits right now that they kind of have to do something, and it doesn't include taking the advice of Republican leaders and doing like a full-throated apology, because that's not what their candidate wants.
And the problem, though, is the mixed message that Donald Trump himself has been issuing. He's saying in one breath that, oh, I'm sorry, if I offended anyone, I was embarrassed by it, but then dismissing it right after, saying it's just locker room talk. So then when his surrogates come out and try to explain it, which one is it? Is he sorry, or is it locker room talk? Which is one reason why Chris Christie said he wished he just apologized and ended it that way.
We're going to get a break in, but actually President Obama just weighed in on the Donald Trump Access Hollywood tape. So we're going to, out of the break, listen to that. We'll be back in just a moment.